Hey there, fellow inquirers! In this mini-series, we will explore the rise and fall of ancient Rome, from humble beginnings as a seemingly insignificant village to the rise of the Roman Republic and its fascinating economic, political, and social structures, to the rise of the Roman Empire and its highest points of power, to the eventual downfall of the Western Roman Empire. We will explore the breathtaking history of this extraordinary civilization, and it all started with a legend. Mars, the god of war, was intoxicated by the beauty of Rhea Silvia, the priestess of the goddess Vesta, so he decided to rape her. Vesta was a virgin goddess of earth, home, and family, and her priestesses were expected to guard their virginity, so it was abhorrent when Rhea Silvia became pregnant with twin boys. Amulius, her uncle, who killed all of her brothers and sent her to the house of Vestal to prevent the continuation of the lineage of her father Numitor, whom he had previously overthrown, was filled with rage and ordered his servants to drown Rhea Silvia's children in the river Tiber to extinguish the potential threats to his rule. However, his servants had mercy on them, so they put them into a basket, hoping that someone would notice it and save the boys. On its way down the river, the basket stuck in the roots of the nearby fig tree, and the young boys were miraculously found and saved from the inevitable death by Lupa, the she-wolf. The Lupa provided them with her milk and had been nurturing twin brothers until a shepherd named Faustulus found them in a lupercal cave on the Palatine Hill. Faustulus had brought the boys to his home, where he and his wife raised them. Once their foster parents told them the story of their origin, Romulus and Remus marched on Alba Longa, killed Amulius, and reinstated Numitor as the king. Then they decided to build a city near the place where they were rescued by Faustulus. But, as it often happens in human societies, there is only one ruler. Thirsty for power, the brothers fought until the death. Romulus eventually killed Remus and became the first ruler of Rome. According to a legend, that's how Rome was founded and got its first king. The beginnings of the ancient Roman civilization are poorly documented. Most of what we know is derived from legends by Roman historians during periods of the Republic and Empire. We can claim with a notable amount of certainty that Rome was founded after the Etruscans, a quite mysterious civilization that inhabited the north of the Italian peninsula. Etruscans unified these settlements around 753 BC, and the consensus among historians is that it is the year of the founding of Rome. Some even claim that there is an exact date, April 21st, but this should be taken with a grain of salt. Rome was situated on the banks of the river Tiber in what is today central Italy. It lies very close to the Mediterranean Sea, quite a significant asset considering the utility of maritime trade between coastal civilizations in the age of classical antiquity. Its geographical position was one of the things considered essential for Rome's success. Because of its central position in the region, ancient Rome was at the crossroads of trade routes between Etruscans in the north and Greeks in the south. Throughout its early evolution, it was heavily influenced by cultures of both civilizations. From Etruscans, Romans borrowed model for trade, their propensity to art and enjoy luxury, as well as their uniquely hedonistic way of life. Unsurprisingly, this was mostly reserved for the privileged parts of society. From inhabitants of Greek colonies in the south, Romans borrowed the literacy, religion, architecture, and a framework for building a culture. Since its inception, Rome has shown a remarkable skill in borrowing and improving upon elements of other cultures. At the early stages of its development, ancient Roman civilization was organized as a kingdom. Regardless of the historical accuracy of the twin brothers' legend, the consensus states that there was a guy named Romulus who was the first king of Rome. The kings had nearly absolute power, but they were not the only holders of power. The Roman Senate had been an essential part of Rome's identity. As a political institution, the Senate exclusively consisted of patres, the male representatives of common communities, which were the aggregates of clans of Roman families. The Senate initially consisted of 100 men. The descendants of these men would end up forming the new social class, the Patricians, a prestigious social class whose influence slowly faded after the period of the early Republic. The duties of the Senate included serving as a king's council and as a legislative body jointly with the people. However, the most important task was electing kings in accordance with the will of the people, which means that after the ruling king passed away, the Senate would name his successor. During Romulus's reign, Rome had an unnatural abundance of males. This was likely the result of the way in which it was initially populated by criminals, fugitives, and other social outcasts, which were overwhelmingly male at the time. To solve this issue, the Roman men decided to invite young women from across the region to a staged celebration of some festival and abduct them so they could start families and further grow the city. This incident is known as the Rape of the Sabina Women. Populating the city was the main agenda of King Romulus, and he clearly thought that the end justified the means. Unsurprisingly, The incident had prompted a war which was miraculously ended by the very women who had previously been abducted to prevent mutual killing of their brothers and their new husbands. So Roman and Sabina kingdoms united and operated under a two-king system. After the Sabina king Titus Tatius died, Romulus remained the only king up until his death. The second king of Rome was a Sabina man named Numa Pompilius, whose character was completely opposite to his predecessors. He was a deeply religious and cultural man who moved the order of the Vestal Virgins from Alba Longa to Rome, founded the Temple of Janus, and established the various priestly colleges. He nurtured peace for the whole period of his reign. He is considered the father of Roman culture, who had paved the way for the transformation of Romans from lowly savages to people who built one of the greatest civilizations in history. But history, as they say, usually comes to a full circle. Numa's successor was Tullus Hostilius, ominous name for an ominous king. After an insignificant dispute, Tullus Hostilius decided to declare war on Alba Longa. Alba Longa encouraged another neighboring city, Fidenae, to fight the war against the warmongering Romans, but Rome easily defeated Fidenae. Tullus Hostilius continued to practice violence, this time by attacking Sabina tribes in the area. The only thing that could stop him was the wrath of gods. The outbreak of plague compelled Tullius to make peace. Gods, it seems, were very angry as lightning struck him and he died shortly thereafter. The fourth Roman king was Ancus Marcius, the grandson of Numa Pompilius. Although he had been chosen as king to restore peace to Rome, he did not disappoint the proponents of the more violent means, as he defeated the Prisci Latini tribe, destroyed their city, and encouraged them to live in Rome, further erasing its population. He built the first bridge over Tiber, known as Pons Sublicius. He was deeply respected by the people up until his death. Lucius Tarquinius Priscus was the first Roman king with Etruscan origins. This was the first time that Etruscans became directly involved in Rome's business. Roman hostility towards Etruscans had justifiably grown larger, considering that Lucius seized power by deception. However, he had an impressive legacy. He successfully conquered Etruscans, Latins, and Sabines. He reportedly built the Temple of Jupiter Capitolinus, introduced Quircus Games, contrived Quircus Maximus, and proposed the city sewage system inspired by those Etruscan city-states. He added 100 members of lesser nobility to the Senate. He was later killed in an assassination ordered by his predecessor's sons. Lucius Tarquinius Priscus' successor was Servius Tullius, probably the most celebrated of all Roman kings. It is likely that he was in some way related to his predecessor and that he had an Etruscan origin. Romans mostly engaged in barter when they traded before Servius Tullius. It is believed that he introduced the first forms of money and thus improved trade. He increased the regional awareness and influence of the city by transferring the regional festival of Diana to Rome. He divided the population by wealth in 5 classes, each class having different voting powers and treatment in the army. He also arranged people into 3 tribes to alleviate the process of taxation. He was also given the power to reform the army and to create a special political assembly known as the Centuriate Assembly, whose importance will grow later. Servius Tullius was killed by hired assassins, as some of his policies, namely those aimed at improving conditions for lower classes, did not quite suit some of the senators. The 7th and the last Roman king was Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, one of those senators that ordered the assassination of Servius Tullius. He was essentially a tyrant, sustaining his power through oppression, persecuting his opponents through violence, and pronouncing himself as the supreme judge. He successfully conquered 2 cities and continued building the sewage system as proposed by his predecessor, but he mostly relied on slave labor by plebeians, members of lower classes. Because of his oppressive character, the whole of Rome was against him. His sexual assault on noblewoman Lucretia triggered a revolution. After aristocracy stood up to the king, the whole kingdom was relieved. The last king of Rome was exiled. Romans agreed that they will never allow themselves to give so much power to one person. They had written it into their constitution. It was 509 BC, and the people of Rome declared the Republic. We must emphasize again, the early stage of the development of ancient Rome is wrapped in a veil of secrecy. Most of the things we explored in this video were reconstructed by later period Roman historians from tales and legends. Stay tuned, because next week we are exploring the period of Roman Republic, an era that is much better documented and far more exciting, in which Rome grew to become the largest city in the world, made the first steps towards serious territorial expansion, and laid the foundation of the art of urban planning. We will have a look at their defeats and triumphs and conflicts, think about effectiveness of their army, and see how their political organization influenced evolution of societies. Click like if you enjoyed this video, share it with your friends, subscribe for more of our content.